The Ottoman Empire was an Islamic state, which, at its peak between the 16th and 17th centuries, ruled most of southeastern Europe, Iraq, Syria, Israel, Egypt, parts of North Africa, and the Arabian Peninsula. Growing from a frontier emirate in the 13th century, the Ottoman Empire became a powerful Islamic state after conquering Arab lands. Following the campaigns of Suleiman the Magnificent from Central Europe to the Indian Ocean, the Ottoman Empire grew into the greatest Mediterranean and European power. However, as with any empire, it began to decline over time, coming to be known as the sick man of Europe. By the end of the 18th century, the crisis of the Ottoman Empire revealed itself as a military crisis. The Ottoman army, its organization and equipment, was still lagging significantly behind the major European powers. Moreover, the arrogance of the local lords had severe economic and social consequences. The kingdom was gradually engulfed in chaos and public finances dwindled. The empire's most intelligent and sober leaders knew that far-reaching reforms were needed. But any attempt at reform would endanger a multitude of vested interests and could potentially damage many acquired rights and privileges. The idea of reform promptly sparked fierce resistance from many forces in society. The Ottoman Empire's crisis had its deepest roots in the slow decline of its very foundations. The empire was grounded in the feudal system, upon which the military and economic strength of the state depended. It also felt the slow but persistent influx of economic influences from Europe, which began to disrupt the feudal system as early as the end of the 16th century. Soon, the breakup of the sick man of Europe seemed imminent, but there were some major forces that wanted their piece of the territory. This is why the Eastern Question, as the division of the Ottoman Empire is usually called, marked the politics of the 19th century. Russia had the greatest interest in the Eastern Question. During the 1774 peace treaty, it won the right to protect Orthodox Christians in the Ottoman Empire. On the other hand, Great Britain and France argued for the survival of the empire due to their economic interests in the Mediterranean. Weakened by military debacles and Christian revolts, the Ottomans started a series of important reforms as the 19th century began. The champion of these reform ideas was Sultan Selim III, who rose to the throne the year the French Revolution began. His main efforts from the outset were directed at restoring state finances and reforming the army. His chief aim was to restructure the army along Western lines, for which reason he had to abolish the iconic Janissary order, as well as the cavalry, to introduce permanent military service. Together with this, a new administration and finance structure was needed. But Europe's patient could not be healed so easily. The new Sultan Mahmud II succeeded in tackling the Janissary issue by defeating them with an army and abolishing them completely in 1826. Mahmud II also brought about a series of progressive measures in the Ottoman Empire, in state, military, and administrative organization. He is best remembered in Ottoman history as a great reformer. He was a major modernizer and provided a personal example by wearing European suits and attending concerts, operas, and ballets at foreign embassies. The French language in Istanbul turned into a hallmark of high culture. But all of this upset many Orthodox Muslims and religious institutions, which had been left out of the reforms. However progressive the new reforms were, there was always something preventing the Ottoman Empire from healing. Even able rulers like Mahmud II could not prevent what was about to happen. The sick man of Europe was dying a cureless malady. The Balkan nations had preserved their ethnic and spiritual identity and individuality for centuries, living under the Ottoman rule. The social and religious obstacles that existed between the Muslim feudal lords and the Christian community hindered their political rapprochement and integration. For this reason, the Balkans got embroiled into settling the so-called Eastern Question in the 19th century. The first revolution broke out in Serbia, followed by revolutions in Greece, Romania, and other countries, lasting until 1878. The Eastern Question became the focal point of European politics once again when a major peasant revolt broke out in Herzegovina in 1875. The uprising quickly spread throughout Bosnia. Serbia and Montenegro chose to help Bosnia in its fight against the Ottomans, and, consequently, the war became a first-class European issue. Serbia and Montenegro regained several important cities in the war and expanded their territory. As the winner of the war in March 1878, Russia enforced the Treaty of San Stefano on the Ottomans. Its articles provided for the creation of a large Bulgarian state, through which Russia could exert even greater control over the Balkans. But the major powers were not content with the San Stefano decisions. A new peace treaty was signed, only this time in Berlin. The Congress of Berlin ran from June the 13th to July the 13th, 1878, and was attended by delegates from Germany, Austria-Hungary, France, Great Britain, Italy, Russia, and the Ottoman Empire. Its decisions ended the Eastern Crisis, a significant component of the long-term solution to the Eastern question. While the key issues, more broadly, were settled by the Congress, its course was strewn with difficulties. Although certain arrangements were made, the situation did not improve much for the Ottoman Empire. Most of its territories were lost, and a great deal of its influence faded away. The empire was slowly fading away, and no one could stop it. The new Sultan, Abdul Hamid II, fought against these decisions, but to no avail. He grew suspicious and flooded the empire with spies. Death sentences were delivered every day. The situation in the empire forced young progressives to head abroad, where the Young Turks Committee was set up. Abdul Hamid dealt with a number of looming threats. The Ottoman state was awash in problems, one of the biggest being its debt to foreign creditors, allowing full meddling by the European powers in the Turkish economy, which became a semi-colonial country. Abdul Hamid led a despotic and increasingly cruel government, and the people's resistance, led by progressive youth, grew stronger. A group of Turkish intellectuals and officials established the Committee for Union and Progress in Geneva in 1891, charged with leading the struggle to overthrow the Sultan and introduce democratic order in the country. It was led by young officers, mostly stationed in Macedonia, and delegates from oppressed nations such as the Macedonians, Armenians, and Arabs also attended. Known as the Young Turk Revolution, the uprising overthrew the Sultan. The Ottoman Empire turned into a constitutional monarchy. The newly appointed Sultan had to swear an oath before Parliament to uphold the constitution, work under Sharia law, and be loyal to his homeland and his people. But all this did not bring the hoped-for result, because the people, living under Turkish rule, did not want to be subdued. Serbs, Bulgarians, Arabs, Armenians, and Albanians still did not accept the Ottoman state. An uprising swept Albania, which became independent. Then came the First Balkan War, which posed new problems for the empire because the Serbian, Bulgarian, Greek, and Montenegrin armies joined forces. The objectives of these allies were to divide Macedonia, liberate Thrace, and raid Edirne, and Istanbul itself. The Turkish army's losses were in the thousands. The Bulgarians captured Edirne and massacred the Muslim population in Thrace. The country was engulfed in chaos, and the Sultan was utterly powerless. But the worst was yet to come. The Ottoman Turkish Empire persisted throughout the 19th century, shedding more territories as nations perceived that it was weakening. And then came the First World War, which finished off the empire once and for all. World War I posed new difficulties and threats. Its defeats revealed one thing: the empire could no longer exist. When the First World War ended, the sick man of Europe found himself in the losing side, and the victorious powers determined the fate of the Turks. The Ottoman Empire witnessed the occupation of Istanbul by the French and British armies. Additionally, the city and the entire strait area were to be taken out of the country and placed under international administration. As per the peace treaty, most of the Ottoman Empire was plundered by France and Great Britain. This was all extremely humiliating. To put it bluntly, the future was bleak. The collapsed forces of the Ottoman Empire, reluctant to accept the utter defeat and destruction of their once great country, chose to oppose the new order, which astonished and discouraged both the victors and the vanquished. A civil war broke out in 1920, in which one faction supported the Sultan, who in turn was supported by Great Britain. The nationalists, led by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, were on the other side. On April 23, 1920, the Grand National Assembly in Ankara elected Mustafa Kemal as president, and Ankara became the capital of the Turkish nation. Aided in arms by Bolshevik Russia, Mustafa Kemal halted the Sultan's army. But this new system of government could not work if there was a parallel government in Istanbul led by the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed VI. Both administrations, in Ankara and Istanbul, asserted sovereignty over the country, with openly conflicting objectives. Ultimately, Ataturk solved this on November 1, 1922, by abolishing the Ottoman Empire, which had existed since 1299, and officially transferring power to the Grand National Assembly. The sick man of Europe ceased to exist, and Turkey was born in its place, heir to the once great Ottoman Empire.